Okay, so we are Dr. Nowatka's senior thesis group for 2017, and our study focuses on stress, control, and depression. I'm Emily Cappelman.
I'm Brooke. I'm Josie Haynes.
I'm Meg Berlin.
And I'm Toery Ballenger.
So, last year, a study found that Wofford College students reported that 40% of Wofford College students reported that at some point in their lives, they'd experienced 5 of 9 depressive symptoms from the DSM-5 criteria. These alarming responses led or motivated our group to develop a study to look into what factors might be influencing our student population to experience this high level of depression. Common factors that we found in our previous research was levels of stress. Specifically, college students can accumulate a high amount of stress, and high levels of stress correlate with high levels of depression. And so among college campuses, the 3 most common stressors are academic, financial, and social stress. Something that was also prevalent in the previous research was emphasized that there is an inverse relationship between stress and control. Control is frequently measured by self-efficacy, which is a belief of one's ability to control their environment. This has 2 roles that it can either buffer or mediate between stress and depression. So whenever an individual feels that they have high levels of self-efficacy, then they feel that they're in more control of their environment, therefore they can control their achievement and their goals and shape their lives. And so whenever there's a stressful life event, like a transitional period, this may lead to the development of feelings of low self-efficacy, such as when an individual feels that they are out of control of their lives. This cognitive distortion can lead to the adoption of maladaptive qualities, such as loneliness, low feelings of self-esteem, feelings of worthlessness, and learned helplessness, and all of these qualities can lead to an increased risk for subsequent depression. So, driven by these previous research findings mentioned, our current study developed a survey to examine the relationship between stress, control, and depression. We were also interested in how students' levels of depression, specifically academic, financial, and social, may differ between their years of college, as prior research has indicated that there's a fluctuation throughout the duration of college.
Academic stress is most profound during college years. High levels of academic stress are marked by transitional periods seen during freshman and senior year. Unaccustomed to college, freshmen tend to be overwhelmed due to the heavy workload they're not used to, and seniors are overwhelmed due to graduation and their adulthood increasing. Future research has shown that financial stress increases when financial independence increases. Freshmen tend to be more financially supported by their parents opposed to seniors. So higher levels of stress may be seen throughout the years as the implications of becoming financially self-reliant increase. So, similar to academic stress, social stress levels increase during transitional periods as well. Therefore, we hypothesized multiple different hypotheses. So at first, we hypothesized that overall stress would be negatively correlated with overall control. We then hypothesized that academic, social, and financial stress would be positively correlated, and academic, financial, and social control would be financially correlated. Therefore, we hypothesized that for every stress domain, it would be negatively correlated with its corresponding control. For year, we hypothesized that freshmen and seniors would have the highest academic and social stress, and seniors would have the highest financial stress. Therefore, we hypothesized that seniors would have the highest overall stress. Corresponding to that, we hypothesized that freshmen and seniors would have the lowest academic and social control, and seniors would have the lowest financial control. Therefore, seniors would have the lowest overall control. Lastly, we hypothesized that levels of stress would be positively correlated with levels of depression, and then levels of control would be negatively associated with depression.
To test these hypotheses, we created a Qualtrics survey, and the survey consisted of the second version of the Beck Depression Inventory, which is a 21-question self-report that measures an individual's current depressive levels. Questions on stress and control among financial, academic, and social factors were also considered. To measure stress, we used the Perceived Stress Survey, the Berger's Social Relationships Survey, and then the financial stress items were composed as a group based on previous research. The control items were measured using the Perceived Academic Control Survey, the Perceived Social Self-Efficacy Survey, and the Financial Self-Efficacy Survey. After the survey was sent out to 500 randomly selected Wofford College students by IT, and their results remained anonymous. And after 2 weeks, we collected data from a total of 172 participants.
So for our results, we decided to divide the Beck Depression Inventory up into the 4 different categories that is given through. So minimally to normally amount of depression to moderate to severe depression. And through moderate to severe depression, we actually found that 25.6% of our participants were currently depressed. So in the past 2 weeks, they felt a significant amount of depression, which is different from last year's study that found 40% over a lifetime. One of our other results is that females were significantly more stressed than men. We also found out that throughout the years, juniors actually had the highest stress levels. Now, for our stress and control, we decided to look at the different domains of stress and correlated it to their corresponding control levels. Now, what we found through that is that social, when we compared social stress to social control, we actually found no correlation with that. So meaning if I had a higher social stress, it didn't necessarily mean I was suggested to have a higher or a lower social control level. But we did find for academic and financial, when we compared their stress to control, we did find significant results for that. But when we went to go graph this data, we actually found out that all the data points ended up being clustered together and that the results were trivial, even though the data analysis was significant. So when we looked at the different domains of stress versus their control, we really couldn't say with confidence that a person with high specific stress in one area was going to have higher or lower control levels of that. The main finding from our study is that when we looked at our stress versus control of depression, we did find our results to be consistent with previous literature. So high levels of stress was going to indicate higher levels of depression, lower levels of control were going to indicate higher levels of depression. And then for stress, a person with higher stress is going to tend to have lower levels of control, which has just been consistent with previous literature. But the very interesting thing is that when we compared all of the stresses together, so when I have financial stress compared to academic stress compared to social stress, those were all found to be positively correlated. So if I'm stressed out socially, there's a good chance I'm going to be stressed out financially and academically as well. And the same results were consistent with our controls as well, which we found very interesting, and we think it is due to the spillover effect. So if I'm going to be high stress in one area, and again, I'm going to be stressed out in another area, that the spillover effect is not just one area of your life is being affected, it's everything.
Okay, one study that we decided to compare our results to also utilized the Beck Depression Inventory, and they looked at approximately 15,000 college students from 17 American universities, and they found that around 12% of their sample reported moderate to severe signs of depression. In comparison, we found 25.6% reported moderate to severe signs of depression, and this is from within the past 2 weeks for both studies. This is an indicator that depression on Wofford's campus should be a prioritized concern. So we found that academic, financial, and social stress were all positively related to one another, indicating spillover effects. As already mentioned, a spillover effect is the transfer of stress from one domain to another, and essentially if you're stressed in one regard, you will most likely be stressed in another. And then we did not find any gender differences in stress. Or no, we did find gender differences in stress, with women reporting more stress, but we did not find any gender differences in control. But this is consistent with past research. Also, we did not find any gender differences in depression. It is also unclear as to why juniors report the most generalized stress, but this is an area for future research. So one limitation from our study could definitely be our small liberal arts college environment, and so our participants may not be representative of all college students. We also considered the fact that the time of our data collection may have played a role. So surveys were sent out in the 2 weeks surrounding class registration, which we considered to be a stressful time for students. While we utilized a previously validated measure for depression, the same cannot be said for stress and control. We based our survey questions on similar surveys from past studies, but it would be worthwhile to examine the internal validity of those measures. There are plenty of future implications based on our findings, one being the personality traits and personalities of college students, as well as the coping mechanisms of college students. Because we found that all specific stress levels relate to corresponding levels of control, we would like to know that if stress is improved in one regard, if it has an effect on the control or stress in another regard. We would like to thank Dr. Nowatka and the psychology department for this opportunity to do this research, as well as Ms. Katarina Barnhart from the IT department for distributing our survey. And our 6th group member, Catherine Ivey, could not be here today, but this research would not have been possible without her hard work and her dedication to the study. Are there any questions?
The study that you compared your results to, did you have any idea about the timing during the academic year that they collected their data?
I think it was just in the fall semester. They didn't specify what time of the year, though. Yeah, they just specified the semester.
But it was fall?
Yeah.
Did you notice that any one group responded more than another by group, classification though?
Actually, there was a very even distribution between years and through genders. I will say that we had a 2-to-1 ratio for females to males, but that is actually pretty good, noting how hard it is to get males to respond to surveys. But yes, we did have an even distribution of freshmen, juniors, seniors, sophomores. And I think the majority of our population was white and
Thank you.
The sex distribution was also even across years.
Thank you.
Ashley?
Do you know if there's any good time to really send out these surveys during a semester? I know there's because you start off the school year, you're stressed about how everything's going to go, and then moving into midterms pretty soon after, and then moving into registration and then after finals. So do you know if there's any really adequate time to do this kind of test?
I think it's kind of hard to say, at least that's my personal opinion, but we didn't really consider the fact that the time of the semester may actually play a role in it. So if you were to do it at the beginning of the semester, people would be stressed. Obviously around the end of the semester, people would be stressed about finals, but then there's always patterns throughout the semester, you know, there's usually weeks that almost everybody has exams, so it's really hard to determine, and I don't know if there's exactly an answer to that yet.
So you said there was some type of previous research done last year.
Right.
Was that sent out about the same time as this one was? Or do you know?
Well, that was Dr. Nowatka's previous study from 2016, and would you say that was
It was about the same time.
right, because you collected the results right after Thanksgiving, right? So it was, but they didn't look as much into stress, y'all had more,
It was-
social connectedness and.
Yeah, it was connectedness to the campus and perceived support on campus.
It was also different levels of depression. So they were looking at lifetime depression, whereas we were looking at the DSM criteria of the 2-week period. All right, thank you.